It's a real pleasure to be here with you this morning, and I'm offering you a scoop. Actually, I have chosen this forum to unveil this program that I've been working on for quite a few months now. The title that I've chosen for the purpose of the talk, and also the title of the plan, is Restructuring UNRWA on the Road to Peace. And the question is actually how restructuring UNRWA will bring us closer to the chance of peace rather than looking at it after the achievement of peace. I'm sure that many of you in your work daily are asking or are being asked, how do we keep the two-state solution alive? I know this is a concern, this is a question, this is a matter for reports, and I want to offer one, I think, critical answer to that through the question of UNRWA. I'm sure as you discuss the issue of how do we keep the two-state solution alive, your mind tends to go to the issue of settlements. The notion is that settlements is the stumbling block. This is the thing that is preventing the keeping of the two-state solution alive. I will not discuss that issue, but I will say that the question of refugees, and I will say the so-called refugees, and the inflation of the number of refugees is as important, if not more, in terms of a stumbling block to the two-state solution, and we need to devote to that as much attention that you devote as international community, as ambassadors, to the question of settlements. If you truly care about keeping the two-state solution alive, I would expect you to devote as much attention to removing the stumbling block of the inflation of the number of refugees as you devote to the question of settlement. I can tell you that as an Israeli who has grown up in classic labor Zionism from the left, a big believer in the two-state solution, the last decade has been a very difficult one for me, one that has turned me somewhat more skeptical about the possibility of peace. And one of the things that makes me skeptical is the issue of refugees, the inflation of the number, Yafa will talk to it, the invented right of return. For me, as an Israeli, when I hear numbers such as 5 million refugees who believe that they have a right to return to what is a sovereign land, I take it immediately as a signal that there's absolutely no interest in peace and there's no interest in a two-state solution. And in truth, I mean, I know many of you are being told and will say, look, the Palestinians don't truly expect to exercise that right when the time will come. They just want recognition of that right. So you will excuse me for being a little suspicious. We have about 100 years of experience with each other. You know, there is a lot of mutual suspicion. And the notion that once the right is granted, I will have to rely on them not to engage in a global 100-year-long campaign to exercise that right, you will excuse me for not trusting that and wanting something more definite to make sure that truly the two-state solution remains alive. So what can truly be done to keep that idea alive? And my argument will be focus on restructuring UNRWA to make peace possible. Not after peace, but before. And I will even say it is a condition to make peace possible. If we will not restructure UNRWA, if we will not deal with the issues now, the two-state solution will be endangered. A colleague of mine in the Knesset likes to say on the question of agencies that deal with refugees, he says the following. He says, you know, the UN has two agencies that deal with refugees. One does a terrible job, and one does an excellent job. And let me tell you which is which. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees does a terrible job. 50, 60 years ago, it started with tens of millions of refugees. and now it has very few. They've all gone. UNRWA, on the other hand, started with about 700,000 refugees, and now they have 5 million. Tremendous success. This is how an organization should work. Build and build your organizational capacity. So I like that because it does make, of course, the point about how UNRWA has become in many ways an obstacle to peace rather than enabling it. So what is my proposal? What have I been working on? And what do I propose that should be done? First, let me tell you who I'm specifically addressing here. The budget of UNRWA, a UN agency established specifically to deal with the refugees that emerged from the conflict of Palestine, but focusing only on the Arab side of that, has a budget of about $1 billion. The $1 billion comes as following: from the United States, from the European Union by way of the European Commission, I'm reading it in rank order of contribution, Sweden, United Kingdom, Norway, Netherlands, Spain, Japan, Australia, Switzerland, Germany, Denmark, Canada, Belgium, France, Italy, the World Bank, Finland, and at the bottom of the list, the Islamic Development Bank, representing 56 Islamic countries whose heart bleeds and pains for their brethren, and they are giving to the treatment of the refugees a whopping $6.7 million out of the $1 billion budget of UNRWA. So, what needs to be done? What needs to be done is all the countries that I listed who are responsible for the $1 billion budget should go to UNRWA next time that the budget requests come around and ask to restructure the budget in the following manner. The budget of UNRWA is separated into basically two parts: core programming and projects. Core programming basically says you give the budget generally, and projects means that you specify what it should be for. All the money should move from core programming to projects in the following way. In Gaza, we all agree, left and right, no matter where your position is, that Gaza is the future state of Palestine. It's part of the future state of Palestine. There's no dispute. All of Gaza is part of Palestine, right? I don't think there's any dispute on that. If Gaza is part of the future state of Palestine, and the Palestinians are asking for recognition for a state of Palestine, please explain to me why a baby born today in Gaza is a refugee. Where exactly is that baby planning to return to? So, if indeed, and I think we can all agree that Gaza is part of the future state of Palestine, it should be very clear that all people born in Gaza are Palestinians living in Gaza in the future state of Palestine, and they are not refugees. Now, the money that goes to hospitals, welfare, schools in Gaza to UNRWA should keep going there. But what needs to happen is to de-link the money from the status of refugees. So the help, the welfare, the hospitals, the schooling should not be given to the kids or to the adults because they are refugees, because they are not, but it should be given to them because they are needy and we want to help them. So I'm all in favor of keeping the funding, keep the money flowing, double it if you want, but de-link it from the status of refugee. Because when you keep that status, you're sending the message that the two-state solution is dead. You do that, the number of refugees in Gaza drops from 1.2 million to about 15,000. 15,000 are those who lived in what is today Israel before 1948. They are the only ones who are deserving of that status. That is what should be done with funding for schools, hospitals, and welfare in Gaza. The West Bank. The West Bank, again, certainly the areas under Palestinian Authority control can be agreed are part of the future state of Palestine. And here we also have the added purpose that we want to help build the future government of Palestine. We want to strengthen governability of the Palestinian Authority. So why are we keeping an agency that runs hospitals, schools, welfare, undermining the strength and government of the Palestinian Authority? So again, don't cut funding, but take the money and transfer it to the Palestinian Authority to care for the hospitals, the welfare, and the schools. Again, the number of refugees, because they are not refugees, they are living in their own future state. I do hope that a baby being born in the West Bank under Palestinian Authority control is not being brought up to think that he needs to return anywhere. And finally, all the others who are living in Lebanon and Jordan, where they actually have citizenship, in Syria, should be merged with the unsuccessful UN High Commissioner for Refugees agency to be treated under the same conditions and the same premises. But again, don't cut funding, double it, but give it to the UNHCR to manage the issue with the same premises and principles that they are working with refugees all over the world. We do that, and the number of refugees worldwide drops from the inflated number of 5 million to 30,000. 30,000 is a calculation that we did, give or take, given life expectancy, assuming there were about 700,000 refugees from the war. The assessment is about 30,000 exist today. Those are the only ones deserving of a refugee status, as it is for all other refugees in the world. And I can tell you that even the most right-wing government, as soon as they will hear that number, they will say, no problem. As part of a comprehensive peace agreement, we will welcome with open hands all the refugees into Israel, as long, according to Decision 194, that they are willing to live in peace with their neighbors. That is the real size of the refugee problem, and as soon as you get it to the real size, the two-state solution comes back to life. As long as you say that the number is 5 million, the solution is dead. And if you truly care about the two-state solution, I do expect the same effort by your countries, by you as ambassadors, to be devoted to bringing down the number to the real number, to get it to the right size, as you devote to the issue of settlements, because this is as an important stumbling block to the two-state solution, I would say more. And I can tell you from my perspective, as someone who cares deeply about that solution, who comes from that part of the political map, this would be an indication for me that that solution is possible. So I kept this for you today. This is the plan that I put forward. I plan to work with parliamentarians in all the donor countries, in all the committees that approve the budget, to send out that message, to make it clear that if you truly still care about the two-state solution, about keeping it alive, then we need to restructure UNRWA today, not in the future, restructure UNRWA today to make the road to peace possible. Thank you very much.